Anemia is often one of the very first signs that kidneys are failing, and most people miss it. By the end of this video, you will know exactly why this happens and you won't forget it. So let's go. So here we have you know what? Forget about the whiteboard for a second. We're going inside the bloodstream. Imagine your body has a fleet of red buses. These buses represent your red blood cells. They're created by the bone marrow. Inside every bus are seeds. Those seeds represent hemoglobin. They're made out of protein-rich iron. Oxygen is the passenger that sits on these seats. Every passenger needs a seat. Without enough seats, oxygen can't ride. The buses travel through the highways of your bloodstream, carrying oxygen throughout your body. At every stop, the passengers get off, delivering oxygen to your muscles, organs, and tissues. But who tells the bone marrow to make more buses? The kidneys do. They send a hormone called erythropoietin, or simply EPO. The bone marrow is like a grumpy factory manager. He ignores everybody, every message, every request, except one, EPO. When the EPO message arrives, the manager says,
"All right, let's get to work."
the factory starts producing brand new blood cells, more buses. One by one, new red blood cells leave the factory, ready to carry oxygen throughout the body. In chronic kidney disease, the kidneys become damaged. They can't send enough EPO. Without the message, the factory slows down. Fewer buses means less oxygen is delivered throughout the body. That's why anemia develops. So how do we help? We give a medication called recombinant erythropoietin, a manufactured version of the hormone. It delivers the missing message, the bone marrow gets back to work, and more red blood cells are produced. But here's one more important piece of the story. Even with EPO, the factory still needs raw materials. Iron is one of those essential materials. Without iron, the bone marrow can't build healthy hemoglobin. Because remember, the seeds are made of hemoglobin. And without healthy seeds, oxygen has nowhere to sit.
Wow.
But when the bone marrow has both EPO and enough iron, the buses are built correctly. The passengers climb aboard and oxygen can once again reach the tissues that need it. Real quick, if this is helping, gently tap that like button. And if you really want this to stick, the board review next is where it locks in. Now let's connect our story to what actually is happening in our body. So now we have the kidneys, and healthy kidneys, they produce erythropoietin, or EPO for short. And that is the messenger. That messenger will reach the bone marrow and it will stimulate the bone marrow so that the bone marrow produces red blood cells, or the red buses. The bone marrow only responds to EPO. So when EPO stimulates the bone marrow starts with the production. In reality, this is a process that can take up to 14 days for that red blood cells to be released, but eventually it's released. So now we have the red blood cell, and inside the red blood cells, we have hemoglobin. And hemoglobin is a iron-rich protein. That iron-rich protein, which in our movie, in our analogy, were the seats, it's where the oxygen cells are going to come and adhere. So once the oxygens are seated, or they adhere to the hemoglobin inside the red blood cell, then the red blood cell will go throughout our circulation, throughout our entire body, and will deposit oxygen cells everywhere in our tissues, in our cells, organs, muscles, brain, heart, everywhere. The problem with our renal failure patients is that this may be affected. The kidney doesn't send the messenger. The message never gets to the bone marrow. Since the kidney is sick, the kidney is failing, they stop producing that erythropoietin, which is the messenger, remember. And if that messenger doesn't come to the bone marrow, the red blood cell production will be very low. There is another organ in our body that helps with the production of erythropoietin, and that is the liver. But in adults, it's a fraction of what the kidneys do. So the bone marrow still gets stimulated some by the liver, sending erythropoietin, but it's not enough. So the red blood cells that are released are not enough, and therefore our renal patients start suffering from anemia. That's how anemia develops in the dialysis or the renal patient. If you can remember the story, you will remember why kidney disease causes anemia. Remember the sequence. The buses are your red blood cells. The seats are hemoglobin. Oxygen is the passenger on the hemoglobin seats. The bloodstream is the highway. Passengers get dropped off in different stops throughout our body. Kidneys send the messenger, which is EPO. The bone marrow only responds to EPO. But when EPO arrives, the bone marrow gets to work by creating more red blood cells. If the kidneys are damaged, this process of sending the messenger, sending EPO, may be affected. Less EPO, less red blood cells. The fewer buses or red blood cells, less oxygen, and this will cause anemia. This is how anemia develops in renal failure patients or dialysis patients. We replace the missing message with recombinant erythropoietin, which is the man-made form of this hormone. Remember that iron is going to be essential. The bone marrow also needs iron to build healthy hemoglobin, or the seats. Without iron, EPO alone won't work well. If this story helped you understand kidney disease and anemia, let me know in the comments. I would love to know which analogy sticks with you. And if you're preparing for your dialysis certification exam, I have a CCHT quick start guide that you can download using the link below. It covers some of the key concepts that every dialysis technician should know. And if you're looking to get fully trained in dialysis, my program link is down there too. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.